أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين بارئ الخلائق أجمعين فاطر السماوات والأرضين، ثم الصلاة والسلام والتحية والإكرام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين سيدنا ونبينا ومولانا أبي القاسم محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين والمظلومين الذين أذهب الله عنهم الرجس وطهرهم تطهيرا. اللهم صل على محمد. أما بعد، فقد قال الله سبحانه وتعالى في كتابه الكريم: بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. يا أيتها النفس المطمئنة ارجعي إلى ربك راضية مرضية فادخلي في عبادي وادخلي جنتي. صلوا على محمد وعلى محمد. السلام عليك يا أبا عبد الله وعلى الأرواح التي حلت بفنائك. عليك مني سلام الله أبدا ما بقيت وبقي الليل والنهار، ولا جعله الله الآخر العهد مني لزيارتكم. السلام على الحسين وعلى علي بن الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحاب الحسين. صلوا على محمد وعلى محمد. Brothers and sisters in Islam and Iman, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Once again, I offer my condolences to all the mu'mineen and mu'minat and muslimeen and muslimat on the tragedy of Sayyid al-Shuhada of Imam Hussein on the 10th of Muharram. Yesterday we spoke about the system in which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has put in place in order for human beings to come to realize what is their expectation from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That covenant that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has put into our very creation in part of our fitrah, that we realize we are faqir, we are fuqara, we are impoverished, and we are in absolute need of Allah, to see that we have a creator, that we have someone who is ghani, free of any need, whom sustains us. And with that covenant and pact with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, there is an expectation for us to do and not do certain things. And that the phenomenon of prophecy, of messengers, those who bring wahi from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, allow us to turn our personal interests into something that becomes secondary to what is the collective interest of society. That there is an interest usually that is short-term for me, and so I act as a selfish person for my own benefit. And then there are interests that are for the jama'ah, for everybody, that are usually very long-term, but are necessary in order for there to be the continuation of life and prosperity. And so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sends prophets and messengers in order to change those collective interests into our personal interests, by informing us of our continuation of life after death, and that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's adl, His justice, comes full circle, and we come into the divine court of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for our accounting. But these prophets, messengers, and awliya are not simply mailmen. They are there to embody the message of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They are meant to be followed and to be the role models by which we act out the divine principles, how we understand the teachings they have brought from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That the awliya of Allah are His representatives. They represent Him. And so if we have a relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and we take that relationship with Allah very seriously, then He says that we are to follow and obey these representatives of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He says, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, قُلْ إِن كُنْتُمْ تُحِبُّونَ اللَّهَ فَاتَّبِعُونِي. Say, O Messenger, that if you truly love Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then follow me. يُحْبِبْكُمُ اللَّهُ وَيَغْفِرْ لَكُمْ ذُنُوبَكُمْ. And if you follow me, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will love you as well in return and show you love in return. And He will forgive you of your sins. He will pardon you. And amongst the awliya of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that has a very special place is Sayyid al-Shuhada, al-Husayn ibn Ali, alayhi afdal as-salatu was-salam. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala. Imam Hussein has a very special rank amongst the Imams of Ahlul Bayt. He is the last of Ahlul Kisa. And he was the last of those for the people of his time and those who still walked and breathed the memory that was Medina during the time of the Prophet. He was a source of solace and he was a source of strength. That one of the companions of our Imam narrated in a riwayah came to Imam Ja'far as-Sadiq alayhi salam. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad. And asked what was so special about Imam Hussein alayhi salam, what was so special about his tragedy over the tragedy of other members of Ahlul Bayt. And he gives him one type of answer. He says that Imam Hussein alayhi salam was, during the time of the Prophet, he was the beacon of guidance and comfort for the people. And after him it was Fatima al-Zahra, and after her Amir al-Mu'mineen, and then Imam Hassan. But one by one, as Ahlul Kisa were taken from us and martyred, Imam Hussein was left. And he was the remnant, he was the baqiyah, he was the gift of Ahlul Bayt that remained amongst them. That when they would see Imam Hussein, they wouldn't just see a man in his 50s, but they would see the Prophet of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They would see Amir al-Mu'mineen, they would see his brother Imam Hassan. And so, the entire entity and identity of Ahlul Bayt became identified with Imam Hussein. And so, the tragedy of Imam Hussein is the tragedy of all of Ahlul Kisa, all of Ahlul Bayt. Imam Hussein's sacrifice in martyrdom is one of those extremely emphasized practices of Ahlul Bayt. That every year, when Muharram comes, all those who claim that they love Sayyid al-Shuhada, they love the son of Ali and Fatima, they gather and they mourn and they weep over the tragedy of Sayyid al-Shuhada. Every year and throughout the year even, they come and they express their grief at the shahadat of even the other members of Ahlul Bayt. Whenever there is an occasion, there is a dhikr of Sayyid al-Shuhada. And that is because of a strong love and devotion and a passion that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given the believers for Imam Hussein in particular. That the ummah of the Holy Prophet loves him and loves his Ahlul Bayt, but there is a special attention, a special inayah from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He has given to Imam Hussein. It is narrated from the Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, in which he says, إِنَّا لِقَتْلِ الْحُسَيْنِ حَرَارَةً فِي قُلُوبِ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ لَن تَبْرُدَ أَبَدًا. That surely for the martyrdom of Imam Hussein, there is a heat, a passion in the heart of the believers that shall never run cold, that will never become cold. And we see that passion ignite every year for Sayyid al-Shuhada. But that passion and that love for Sayyid al-Shuhada is supposed to be embodied and implemented because it is a relationship. With Sayyid al-Shuhada, we are supposed to cultivate a very powerful and profound, deep relationship. That wilaya, remember, is a qurba, is a closeness in which there is seemingly no difference between those who have become close. That is, as the Arabic lexicographers say, that when two things are so close together that there's nothing between them. Absolutely nothing. That is what wilaya is. That is what the root waliya means. And so when you have wilaya with Imam Hussein, you have a strong relationship with him. And that relationship is something of the utmost importance and for why we gather in these gatherings, in these majalis for Sayyid al-Shuhada. And relationships in our modern world today and in our societies in particular have become something of great sorrow and are difficult, in fact, for many of us to maintain, to understand what a relationship is. That many of our relationships in our lives have lost depth. That the ability for the modern person to have a relationship with someone is very difficult. Most of those relationships that we see and we have are shallow. They have no depth to them. For example, we might make a relationship with someone based off a common sports interest. We might have a relationship with someone based on the same type of food we might like. But those types of relationships are very easy to come by and to go by. A relationship not founded on any sort of deep moral foundations, deep worldview foundations, are not going to last. And such a relationship will always remain shallow. When you have no substance to a friendship, to a marriage, to any type of relationship we might have, whether we chose that relationship or not, if that relationship has no substance, it will not be given the care it needs. If we do not take serious the plant and the greenery in our homes, and we neglect them without showing them care, without showing them love, without showing them all that they need, that those plants will wither away and die. And such is the case with our relationships. If we do not forge deep, meaningful relationships, that those relationships we have, if we do not maintain those relationships, they will disappear. That people today, they easily will move from one city to the other without any regrets of their own. In fact, they never make a truly intimate relationship with anybody in their life because they don't have the desire to invest into it. That they are satisfied being able to easily walk in and walk out of any relationship they have because it suits their selfish needs. That it's so easy for people today to have a friend for many years. They see them every day. They might go to school with them from kindergarten all the way up until high school. But then one day it's so easy for them to just leave and walk away. That they say one thing to you. They disagree with you on something. They criticize a life choice you might make. And from that point onwards, you just say, all right, I'm done. And you throw that person away and you go and find a new friend. That was your friendship and that relationship with that person so shallow that one fight, one argument, even if it was something somewhat serious, is able to shake the foundations of that friendship and it is no more. What that would indicate to us is that the foundation, the base of that relationship was never strong to begin with. It lacked any depth and it lacked any care. And the same could be said about relationships between parents and children, that it's very easy nowadays for parents and children to split and go their own ways, when that is in fact against the moral and ethical teachings of Islam. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. And the height of such shallow relationships have embodied themselves in a phenomenon we see today of social media. That we can see how we have very many connections in this world, very many relationships. That it's on social media, it's easy to have hundreds or thousands of friends. By this simple click of a button or tap on a screen, now you have another friend, a new friend. But such connections, such friendships are shallow. They do not have the depth of what it means to have a real and true relationship with someone. Social media is not the example of a good relationship. Social media, in fact, you'll say, I have many friends. But at the very same moment, that person is all alone. That as human beings, we're a social creature. And something within our fitrah pushes us to have relationships, to see people, to want to meet people, to gather with them. And it's such a strange event and phenomenon that social media kind of activates that part of our being. And in a way fools us that we have a relationship, we have friends, we have social interaction. But at the same time, we feel and experience great loneliness and great issues of self-esteem. That many institutions who look and study social media and the effects on people say that extended use of social media has linked to depression and anxiety. That because what they see on the internet, those false relationships that they have, tell them that they are not good enough, that they are not important enough, that they are not living their lives properly. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. And so it is not enough to just have any old connection, any old relationship with someone. It is not enough to say that I am part of a community and I very shallowly just know the faces of people or just the names of people. Because then it's no different than having 100 or 1,000 Facebook friends. If I don't have a meaningful and a strong, deep relationship with such people. Social media is not a connection, it is entertainment. That we use these relationships to entertain us. And we can see how that way of being extends beyond the screen into our physical lives. That we see people not as our brethren in faith, not as other human beings with dignity, not people that we are able to benefit and support, but we see them as entertainment. Just like how our friends on Facebook will entertain us with pictures and funny videos and articles. That we just see people in our lives, see people in our masajid and in our centers just to entertain us. But that is not a true relationship. That relationship has no depth. Social media itself is not evil. It can be useful. It can connect you to groups. It can connect you to finding where the mu'mineen gather. It can connect you to knowing when is the next majlis, for example. But people have become addicted to it, to relationships that are not meaningful. They become addicted to relationships that have no depth to them. That teenagers spend something like 9 hours a day, for example. And the elders of our communities are not immune from this. This is not an issue just for children, not for teenagers alone. But we have statistics for them. 9 hours a day, checking it hundreds of times a day. But real relationships, and the relationships that are supposed to be so close and so intimate to us, require not a click, not simple a few words from us, but they require depth, and they require our presence. true relationships, our relationships that are important in Islam, our relationship with Allah and His Messenger, our relationship with Ahlul Bayt, our relationship with Sayyid al-Shuhada alayhim as-salam, requires our presence, requires us to invest ourselves into that relationship. There is a desire for presence. That these gatherings in which Sayyid al-Shuhada is mentioned, there must be not simply a drive to come and be entertained. There must not be simply a drive to come and just learn a few facts, but that drive to come together and be present with Sayyid al-Shuhada. One of the late Maraja al-Marhum Ayatollah Bahjat said that when you are going to the majlis of Imam Hussein, do not say that I am going to a gathering, I'm going to just a ta'ziyah, I am going to a majlis. Say that no, I am going to be with Sayyid al-Shuhada. I am going to be in the presence of my Imam. I am going to be with the caravan of Imam Hussein alayhi afdal salatu wasalam. Virtual presence is not real presence. Virtual presence is not true presence with someone. Because you can speak to someone on the phone, you can FaceTime, you can have text messages with someone. But when you sit down with that same person after a week, after a year, and you have a long conversation with them that you lose sense of time, and you realize it may have felt like only 5 minutes, but a whole hour or 2 hours has passed. And you have found you have reconnected with someone. That there is meaning and depth to that relationship you have. Virtual presence is never going to cut it, is never going to satisfy that need that a human being one has for social interaction, nor will it be able to cut it and say that we have a deep and a meaningful relationship with Sayyid al-Shuhada. For if we are not able to gather with the believers and go out of our way for Sayyid al-Shuhada, then we are not taking that relationship as seriously as we must. And we can see that from our own beloved ones. That we may have distance between us and our parents, our mothers, but never will it be for our mother the same to talk to them on some sort of electronic media. It is not the same as being in the company of your mother, being next to your mother, sitting with your mother, giving your mother a hug. Those types of relationship, that relationship with your mother will never be the same. It will never satisfy her that she just sees you through a screen, but she requires and she wants your presence. She wants your attention, your sacrifice to be given for her. And that is the type of relationship and fellowship, ma'iyah, that is required of us to have with Ahlul Bayt, with Sayyid al-Shuhada. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. That we read in many of the ziyarat of Sayyid al-Shuhada. فَيَا لَيْتَنِي كُنْتُ مَعَكُمْ فَيَا لَيْتَنَا كُنَّا مَعَكُمْ فَنَفُوزَ مَعَكُمْ. If only we were with you. If only we had been with you, O Imam Hussein. If only, O caravan of Karbala, if only we had been with you, so we would have been successful. That there is a certain attachment, there is a certain requirement of fellowship, of witness with the Imam that is required in order to be successful. Because to simply just say you have, I know Imam Hussein, I know a few things about him, you don't have a deep and meaningful relationship with him. Because the Kufans had a relationship. The Kufans had a relationship with Imam Hussein. The Kufans knew the father of Imam Hussein. Many of them were companions of Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam. Many of them were the companions of Imam Hassan al-Mujtaba alayhi salam. And the Kufans wrote letters and letters to Imam Hussein, calling him, asking him, pledging their allegiance, telling him how much they loved him. But those letters and that communication they had, that distance communication they had, they may have said many words, they may have believed they had a relationship with Sayyid al-Shuhada, but when push came to shove, when it came to being with Imam Hussein, to struggle and to sacrifice for Imam Hussein, they were not able to pull through. Many of them had their legitimate excuses. Many of them had real reasons that they could not make it. Many of them had been imprisoned. Many of them had been attacked and killed by Ibn Ziyad and the forces of Bani Umayyah. But the remainder of them had become cowards, had gone back on their words. And so their letters and their cries for Imam Hussein were nothing more than tweets to Imam Hussein. That they're just easy words to throw out into the air, but they had no meaning behind them. And that is because they were not there to establish a relationship with Sayyid. They did not allow that relationship with Ahlul Bayt to be the highest priority in their lives. That they believed they had tawalli, a wilaya with them. When you are so close that there is nothing between you. But when you are so close to someone that you are them and they are you, you're not able to abandon them. You're not able to run away from them. You can't help but be with them. That they say that when our 12th Imam, Imam al-Hujjat ibn al-Hasan, salawatullahi alayhi, that the true companions of our Imam, upon his return, they will hear his call, and they will simply desire to be with him, and they will be with him. They will go forward and do whatever it takes, cross over ice. And some even say in some miraculous way that they will reach Imam Hussein. Those people will immediately be with him, be in the presence of their Imam when he makes his announcement, when he comes out of his ghaibah, out of his occultation. And that is because even while the Imam is not physically there, they had a strong and deep, profound relationship with their Imam. They tried to cultivate and have ma'rifah of their Imam. Because wilayah has no boundaries. Wilayah goes through time and space. That even though we are separated from Imam Hussein by centuries on this earth, and we are separated from Imam Hussein without his physical presence, that does not mean we do not have a relationship with him. Because we do not see our Imam, we are not able to touch our Imam. It does not mean that the Imam is not there. It does not mean that the Imam, his presence is not with us. Like Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is near and dear to the believers. That when we ask about him, فَإِنِّي قَرِيب, that I am close. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not physically there. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not limited with a body. To have qurba the same way we experience qurba in the physical world. And the Imams, although they are not in this physical realm anymore, they are able to have a qurba with us that is beyond time and space. That we are able to reach out to them. Now remember, the awliya of Allah have the characteristics of Allah. They have the akhlaq of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. In order to preach تَخَلَّقُوا بِأَخْلَاقِ اللَّهِ, they themselves must have the akhlaq of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in a hadith Qudsi, and says in the teachings of the Quran, that if you take one step towards me, I will run towards you. And the Imams, they did not go out searching, but they know that whenever someone would want guidance from them, would want and seek their presence, that the Imam would go to them. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. And that tool and that presence that the Imams have established in order for us to grow intimate with them, to grow intimate with Imam Hussein alayhi salam, is the majlis of Imam Hussein, is the gathering for the purpose of recalling the tragedy of Sayyid al-Shuhada, and to remember him and remember the sacrifice of him and his family. Those who gave their lives and those who gave their hijab, those who gave their sweat and their tears for Sayyid al-Shuhada, to remember their tragedy. And this gathering is that means through which we are able to give our presence to Imam Hussein, to give our bay'ah, to give our pledge of allegiance to Imam Hussein alayhi salam. These gatherings are for their dhikr with their loved ones. That the point of the majlis is to come together, not just to hear about Imam Hussein, but to be with those who also love Imam Hussein. To be in the gathering of those hearts and those minds who are oriented towards the principles of Muhammad wa Ali Muhammad alayhi salam. To be with those who also shed tears, whose hearts long to not be in whatever locality they are, but their hearts long to be in Karbala. Their hearts long to be with Imam Hussein and Abu al-Fadl Abbas. That our relationship with Sayyid al-Shuhada and with the caravan of Imam Hussein is not just through our own selves, but through our believing brothers and sisters, through the company of our collective wilayah for them. And so this majlis is there for us to strengthen and deepen our faith, so we can come to understand more who Imam Hussein was. What did he lay down his life for? What are the divine principles by which Sayyid al-Shuhada lived his life, for which we gather every year and throughout the year in order to mourn him and to remember him, and for his dhikr to continually be on our tongues. To put this message into practice. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. That many of the ahadith that talk about the reward for weeping over the tragedy of Imam Hussein alayhi salam, they in fact go as far as saying, even if you cannot cry, even if tears are not coming to your eyes, that you should make yourself cry. You should try to cry. You should put yourself in that physical state. You should wail. You should try to put your heart in that place and your body in that position such that you would want to cry, that you would eventually come to cry. Because it is not always that we feel on the inside what we know how things should be on the outside. Islam obligates upon young children salah. Obligates on 9-year-olds, 12-year-olds, 14-year-olds. That is now wajib. That all of these duties that you've been learning in Sunday school, for example, the furu' ad-din, the salah, the sawm, the fasting, amr bil ma'roof, and nahyu anil munkar, these become wajib at such a young age. That these are ritual practices that with practicing them, such a person would not be considered a good Muslim. They would not be upholding their end of the bargain with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But a young child who is obligated to perform salah and may be diligently performing their salah every day, they will not know the deep meaning of salah. They will not, for example, experience the full meaning of salah at such a young age. They may not understand the full message and understand why exactly they're praying, except that they know that this is an obligation from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That one of the practical philosophies within Islam is that you may not understand right now, we may not feel right now. It takes action, and by practicing and by worshiping, that understanding and that feeling will come. That your outside physical actions will come to shape and form your inside. And so even though some of us may not in the moment feel the tragedy of Imam Hussein, we may not in that moment understand the full meaning of the sacrifice of Sayyid al-Shuhada at Karbala. But the Imams say that make your actions resemble that which you want to become. Make your physical body try to weep, try to mourn and wail over Sayyid al-Shuhada, so that one day your heart will be fully inclined and it will naturally come to you. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. And that is so we can have an intimacy with the struggle of piety, the struggle of the righteous. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants not just for us to know that the Imams are ma'soom and that righteousness is good, but the practice and the ritual of mourning for Sayyid al-Shuhada and his companions is to bind our hearts to the struggle of such people. For our hearts to be so inclined that when we are there in our own lives and we see injustice, it's not simply a mental calculation that I know X and from X follows Y, but that I feel in the depth of my being that this injustice in front of me is wrong, and so I am fully inclined to change, fully inclined to move and to act against such injustice. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants my heart to be inclined towards the struggle and sacrifices of Sayyid al-Shuhada, so that I am in my own life able to sacrifice and struggle just like Sayyid al-Shuhada, just like Lady Zainab did, just like Abu Fadl Abbas. Because we may know information, we may have lots of knowledge at our fingertips, but often we may know these things and work against them. I may know that smoking is bad for me and is destroying my lungs, but still that person will continue to smoke. Still they will not quit. I might know that eating a bad diet, doing no exercise is going to harm my health. It will cause complications for myself in the future. I may know those things in my mind, but I am not inclined to do anything about it. That has not motivated me enough to change, to want to move. And so the Majlis of Imam Hussein, in which we gather with the believers, with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's beloved ones, in order to bind ourselves with this covenant, not just a covenant of our minds, but a covenant of our hearts and of our emotions. And to make such a relationship deep and to foster this relationship, it requires sacrifice. It requires being inconvenienced. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Because when you have a deep and meaningful relationship, you know that relationship and that person actually truly cares for you if they are willing to go out of their way, willing to sacrifice, do zahma for that person. That if you have a close, dear loved one, your parents, your own children, your spouse, that they have become gravely ill or gravely sick, you would not hesitate to go to them. You would not think, well, maybe these flights that I'm trying to get to that different city where my beloved one is are too expensive, I'll try to find another one later. You would give up anything. You would buy the most expensive flight there is because you know that you need to be there with that loved one now, because they need you at this very moment. And so, the Majlis of Imam Hussein alayhi salam is supposed to be near and dear, that the connection with Sayyid al-Shuhada is such a part of our lives and so deeply embedded in our souls and our hearts that we will give anything for it. That we will go out of our way to attend the Majlis of Imam Hussein. We are not satisfied and we are not calmed by a virtual presence. That in very many ways, the way we live our modern lives, the Majlis is inefficient. We have many responsibilities in our lives. We have work, we have our children. And if we want to attend the Majlis, we have to come back at a certain time from work. And we have to make sure we eat at an appropriate time. We have to get the children ready if we have children. We have to drive, and sometimes that is a long commute. Sometimes we don't live next to the masjid. We don't live 10, 15 minutes away. We live 45 minutes away. We live an hour away. And then when we arrive at the masjid of the center, there is salah. And after salah, there is the recitation of poetry, marsiya, soz khani. And then after that, there will be a speech. There will be a taqreer. And then there will be a musibah, the musaib. And then after that, there will be matam. There will be this whole drawn out event that is entirely the majlis of Imam Hussein. And then we'll have to think about in our minds, and we'll evaluate, is it really worth going? And our evaluation in our minds is based on utilitarian thinking. We might think, well, the information I'm learning is not new. I don't learn new things when I go to this majlis or that majlis. And the way we evaluate whether it was a good majlis or a bad majlis was how many new facts did I learn, for example. Without understanding that the point of the majlis is not purely so we know facts. We might know the exact birthday and the exact year of Karbala. We might know how many children Imam Hussein exactly had. We might know where he was at this year or on that day of this month. But those facts are not what binds us to Imam Hussein. Those facts are not the essence of what it means to come and gather for Sayyid al-Shuhada. Knowledge is important. To seek knowledge is a fariḍa, an obligation from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But success of one's majlis does not mean that they have gained facts. But success of someone's first ashra, that his attendance at the majalis, is that when they see or hear the mention of Imam Hussein, that they are struggling to hold back tears. That when they hear the mention of Ali al-Akbar, they struggle to keep their tears back. That when they see evil in the world, when they see that something is being wronged against their near and dear ones, their family members, and even other human beings in general, they're able to step up to the plate. They do not turn away and just give lip service to their wilayah, like many of those Kufans did. And so many of us will try to solve this predicament of it not being worth it to go to the majlis by attending virtually, by saying, I'll listen to it later, and we'll play it on twice the speed or 4 times the speed. But the majlis of Imam Hussein is not established by Sayyidah Zainab, not established by our Imam for us to be bystanders to it, for us to watch a majlis, to be viewers of a majlis. But the majlis is a spiritual gathering in which many hearts, all inclined towards Karbala, all inclined toward Imam Hussein, come together to deepen their faith, to solidly show Imam Hussein that we are with you. Ma'akum fa ma'akum. That we are with you, and we are with you. And we are with nobody else. We are not with your enemies. That we have to come into the company of those who love Imam Hussein, and together we will come into the abode of Imam Hussein. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says at the end of Surah Al-Fajr, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, Ya ayyatuhan nafsul mutma'inna, O you soul at tranquility, irji'i ila rabbiki radiyatan mardiyah. Return to your Lord. He pleased with you, and you well pleased with your Lord. But then what does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala connect our salvation with? He does not say directly, go into paradise. Fadkhuli fi ibadi. Come and enter into the company of my servants, into the company of those who love me, those who struggle for me, those who give their lives for me. And then, وَادْخُلِي جَنَّتِي. Then enter into my paradise. There enter into and struggle many of the companions of Imam Hussein had. Many of them had the deepest and most profound love and connection with Sayyid al-Shuhada, but they were unable to be there with Imam Hussein. They desired nothing but to be with Sayyid al-Shuhada. Abdullah bin Ja'far, the husband of Sayyidah Zainab, that when Imam Hussein had gone and left Medina, Abdullah bin Ja'far was very ill, and he was unable to accompany the Imam. And Abdullah bin Ja'far will constantly send letters to Mecca towards the caravan of Imam Hussein, asking them, where are you now? What is going on? How is your health? And then when news reached Medina that Imam Hussein had to leave Makkah. He is not even safe in the Haram of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Abdullah bin Ja'far did not sit back and do nothing. He showed the depth of his relationship with Sayyid al-Shuhada. He showed his love by sending his own 2 sons, his 2 children, with Imam Hussein to Karbala. On the final night, on the night of the 10th of Ashura, when Imam Hussein had gotten a little bit of time from his enemies, one more night, in order to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to engage in recitation of the Quran, to connect back to their Lord. Many of them engaged in Salatul Layl, in Tilawatul Quran. And some of them were mothers who went to their sons and said, "Oh my beloved child, oh my son, come and spend time with us. Come and sit with me for a little bit. For after this night we will have nothing left but these memories for which to lie back on. Nothing will we have of you but these memories." When you would sit in our lap, when we would hold you. It was Sayyida Zainab who brought her 2 sons with her to Karbala. That on the day of Ashura, Sayyida Zainab took her 2 sons, On and Muhammad, and she brought them to her and said that, "Oh my sons, today is the day for which you must show your dedication to Islam. You must show your dedication to the Prophet and his Ahlul Bayt. You must show honor for your mother and your father on this day. Oh my children, I do not want to be embarrassed that all the other children of Banu Hashim have gone forward to fight and defend your uncle while you sit back. Oh my children, go forward and ask your uncle to participate." On and Muhammad were not grown men, that history tells us that they were still children. That Sayyida Zainab in their young childhood would have come to Abu Fadl Abbas asking them, "Oh Abbas, teach my children to fight. Teach them how to wield a sword." And maybe Abbas would have said to Sayyida Zainab that, "Oh my sister, that they are my nephews. I will surely teach them and I will make them the best of warriors, but they are only children right now. They are but young lads and they cannot even hold a sword properly. Don't you think we should wait? Don't you think that we should allow them to become grown, strong men before I'm able to train them?" And Sayyida Zainab would reply that, "Oh Abbas, my children will need to fight before that they are men. My children will need to be able to wield a sword and defend Islam while they are still children." And when On and Muhammad came back to Sayyida Zainab, she said that, "On and Muhammad, why have you not gone out to fight yet? Why that you are still alive here with you, with me, with your mother?" And they would tell him that, "Oh, we asked our uncle." And he would push us away by one excuse after another, that "You are young lads right now. I cannot let you go to your death." Or they would say that, "Your father is not here. How can I let you go to battle while your father is not here?" And so Sayyida Zainab put on fresh clothes on her children, wrapped the turban around their heads herself, put the armor on, gave them their weapons, and took them by the hands to her brother, to Imam Hussein. And she said that, "Oh my master, oh Hussein, will you not accept this sacrifice from your sister Zainab in the way of Islam?" And Imam Hussein hesitated, that even these words. And so Lady Zainab said one more thing, "Oh my brother, I cannot let it be that when I meet my mother Fatima al-Zahra on the day of judgment, that I will not be able to say anything, that I will be able to tell her that, oh my mother, when your son was all alone on that battlefield, that I gave my 2 sons to protect him, to sacrifice themselves for the heir of this messenger, for the heir of Islam." And so, even hearing this, Imam Hussein relented, and his 2 young nephews went forward onto the battlefield, On and Muhammad fighting together. They were valiant warriors for their young age.
And Imam Hussein and Abu Fadl Abbas would watch in the distance. They would watch their two nephews fight, swords clash. But then they saw that On and Muhammad had become separated. On was trying to find Muhammad, and Muhammad was trying to find On. They were trying to defend one another. But they had become surrounded by the army of Yazid. And they called out to their uncle, Ya Amma! Ya Amma! Come to our aid, come help us! And Abu Fadl Abbas and Imam Hussein ran forward. They came to the battlefield. But they had come back and they came to carry the lifeless bodies of their nephews. How difficult it must have been to take back the bodies of your nephews whom you had raised like your own children. And when these two bodies had come back, there was not any child, any blood from Bani Hashim that came back to the camp, upon whom Lady Zainab would not cry. Her tears would be the first tears to mix with her blood. But there were two martyrs on the day of Ashura upon whom Lady Zainab did not weep. There were two young children who gave their lives for Sayyid al-Shuhada that she did not weep. And maybe one of the women would have come to the tent of Lady Zainab and said, Oh Lady Zainab, oh daughter of Allah's messenger, this is the last moment you have, the final time you are able to see your children before that they are no more, before their bodies are separated from their heads. Lady Zainab went into sajda and she said, Allahumma taqabbal minni hadha al-qurban. Oh Allah, accept from this servant of yours, this Zainab, this sacrifice for Islam, this sacrifice for the Khalifa of Rasulullah. And she must have made that dua that, oh Allah, I made this sacrifice, but give me strength. Oh Allah, give me firm strength on this tragedy. For although I have given my sons in the way of Allah for Islam, I am still a mother. I am still a mother of two young boys that I do not have the strength within me. How many times will I be able to look up at those spears to see the heads of my young boys? How many times will I look up to see the blood on their heads? Wa Husayna, wa Madhluma. Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. وَسَيَعْلَمُ الَّذِينَ ظَلَمُوا أَيَّ مُنْقَلِبٍ يَنْقَلِبُونَ. مات حسن.